There we go. Cool. Hi, welcome to the first Tales of the Cocktail Roundtable. Very excited to have you. My name is Laura Green. I am from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a spirit specialist for a distributor here in the Midwest called Winebow. And I am the founder of Healthy Pour, which is an education and consultation company to teach people how to care for their mental health in the hospitality industry. I'm really excited to have all of these wonderful human beings here to talk about how to integrate systems into your organization that help your employees thrive. Something I think that we are ready for as a community and as an industry is to start talking about how we actionably improve the mental health of the individuals working in this industry in the workplace, right? So people definitely have an obligation to care for themselves and to take the step to care for themselves. But the reality is that our industry and the culture of our industry isn't really the healthiest or safest space. So all of us come from different backgrounds, are from all over the place. We work in different roles in the industry, and we're here to discuss what we do and see and sort of get creative with each other about how we can improve workspaces. So yeah, here we go. I guess I would like everybody to introduce themselves. Let's start with Alex Jump.
Hi, thanks for having us, Sarah. I'm Alex Jump. I'm the bartender at a company in Denver, Colorado, and I am the founder of Focus on Health, along with LP, who'll be introducing herself in a moment.
Hi, I'm LP. I'm one of the co-founders of Focus on Health, a health and wellness company that advocates for utilizing many programs and tools and resources. We advocate for health and wellness for food and beverage individuals, and happy to be here.
Great, thank you. How about Mony?
Hi, I'm Mony Bunni, also based out of Chicago. I am the beverage development specialist at Tenzing Wine and Spirits, a wholesale distributor here. Along with that, I'm the co-founder of Support Staff, which is a mental health nonprofit. Here in Chicago, we focus on trying to restructure the hospitality industry by helping owners create spaces that are focused on their employees' health and helping employees advocate for their rights by knowing their rights. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, how about Ryan Maybee? Sorry, I got you mid-sip.
That's right. I'm Ryan Maybee from Kansas City, Missouri, formerly bartender, bar and restaurant owner, and now co-founder of a spirits company and distillery called J. Rieger & Company.
Great. And Sean Kenyon. Oh, you're muted.
First one. My name is Sean Kenyon. I'm a third-generation bartender. 35 years of bartender now as of July, and I'm the bartender proprietor of Williams & Graham, Occidental, and American Bonded in Denver, Colorado.
Wonderful. How about Safia?
Oh man. Hi, I'm Safia Goodwin. I'm I run a bar called Good Measure in Chicago. It's a little misplaced dive bar in River North. I've been doing this job or something that resembles distantly this job for 22 years, I think, or 23. I don't know, longer than I know how to count numbers. And happy to be here. Hi, guys.
Hi. Patrick.
Hey, guys. I'm Patrick Sweeney. I'm here in Madison, Wisconsin, Northern Heartland. I am the co-owner of Merchant Bar and Restaurant, as well as Lucille up here, and a project that we're working on out towards Milwaukee right now. So I'm happy to be here, Laura. Nice to see you in person. Jesse always says great things. So I'm also recently sober after a 30-year stint with heavy alcohol and drug use. So I hope I can be of service in some way in that regards. I'll be celebrating a year sobriety, hopefully in a week or so. So Thank you.
That's awesome. Awesome. Ricky.
Hi, I'm Ricky Ramirez. I own the Mothership Bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a whatever dive cocktail bar. I opened about a year ago with a strong case of PTSD and have been sort of chronicling my mental health while opening a bar via social media, and also holding community talks and whatnot about it and other things.
And other things. Thanks, Ricky. Erick.
Hello, Erick Castro. I am a proud Mexican-American bartender, first-generation American. Own 3 bars, Boilermaker, Pipe Provisions, and one which lost 3 categories today at the Spirit Awards, Raised by Wolves, 0 for 3, top that, everybody. And also the host of Bartender at Large, which airs every Monday.
Oh, and last but certainly not least, Dick Loveless Jr.
Hey, you guys doing? Dick Loveless Jr. coming to you live from Delaware, but I start my move to Chicago tomorrow, so that's exciting. Grew up family in industry, owning and running restaurants, from cooking to bartending to managing, open up a bar, and then also over the past 10 years, I've been doing mobile intensive outpatient treatment with at-risk youth and their families. Currently at Offsite Events and Spirits, marketing as their research coordinator. And last year, just recently finished up my doctoral degree in organizational learning, leadership, and innovation. So,
right on.
Yeah, super happy to be here with you guys, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, this is dope. I'm excited. I mentioned in the seminar this morning that if you asked me 3-4 years ago of conversations that look, well, virtually like this, if that'd be happy to be like, nah. But really, these conversations around mental health in the industry, it's hit a point that we can't really hide from it anymore, right? Like, we have to start addressing it. And I think COVID has absolutely turned up the volume on the need. Like, every crack in our foundation is showing in every facet of how we operate as a community and as an industry. And I just want to remind people that when we talk about systems that help people thrive, we're talking about social systems, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about physical health, and all of these things are tied together in a messy knot, and everyone is connected to the other piece. So as we have these conversations, I just want to make sure that we're thinking mindfully and being cognizant of, that issues around racism, sexism, harassment are tied into our mental health. Stress and the physicality of that is tied to how we interact in our interpersonal relationships in the workplace. Our interpersonal relationships are going to affect our interpersonal relationships outside of the workplace as well. So all of these things are absolutely connected. Who am I going to start with? How about Ryan Maybee? Calling on you. So your distillery has absolutely prioritized your employee well-being and satisfaction. And I want you to speak a little bit to how you've done that and how that's paid off for your business.
There's quite a few different ways. I mean, when we first started the business, we founded this company 6 years ago in 2014. And between 2014 and last year, we grew from just myself and Andy Rieger, the founder, just 2 of us, and no employees. In 5 years, we went from no employees to about 10. And then overnight, we went from 10 to over 70 by building the tasting room, daily tours, event spaces. We just added a whole nother level to the business. And so it was a really big jump. But all along, I mean, we tried to stay true to our core values and principles about hiring people first, people that we trust and respect and admire and that we can learn from, hiring people that are good at the things that we're not good at, and trying to make the overall organization better. And hopefully, as efficient and working well together as possible. It's really hard when you're talking about going up to 60, 70 people plus with so many different areas of business. But we really try to live by our own rules of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our people. Some of the specific things that we did when we expanded last year, like here on site at the distillery, we built a gym for our employees, giving them access to it. That's one thing that we did. We have a company policy of unlimited paid time off, which when the idea was first floated, I thought was a little bit radical, but really, what it does is it kind of takes that pressure off of people requesting time off, right? And as long as they're getting the job done and they're being responsible and they're autonomous in managing their own time, and that allows us to trust them, and then they trust us, right? So I think it kind of works both ways. So those are a couple of specific things that we did. But we always try to take all those things into consideration and make sure that that people are happy. And I think when they're happier, they're more productive.
That's legit. Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about like productivity and satisfaction at work?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, first off, in order to get productivity out of people, you have to have two things. You have to have really clear communication with clear goals set, and then you have to have accountability, right? So as long as, you always say, like, in any problem, I think that develops within an organization, what's like the number one factor? It seems like always comes up. It's like, if we had just done this better, we could have avoided this whole problem. And that, I think, is communication, right? Like if we had just communicated better, we could have avoided this problem all along. So communication is key, making sure that people understand what the goals are, what's expected of them. So there's no mystery there as far as like holding them accountable. And then, if they're not living up to it, like be honest. And if there's a problem or a way that we can help make each other better to avoid that problem from repeating itself, we try to address it and help people improve.
Something that you mentioned early on was about hiring good people, and Safia, I want you to comment a little bit on this is why I brought you on. It's happening. On your hiring practices. And Erick, I think that you do a really good job, communicating what you do to hire, and your staff retention is pretty extraordinary as well. So if you two could kind of like throw the ball around talking about that.
I didn't hear that last sentence.
I don't know what it was.
You said,
about
and
your
Erick.
And you're like, your hiring practices. I remember you posted something on Instagram some time ago about, integrating the needs of the community in your hiring practice. Yes. And I think also something to bring up is sort of checking your biases on hiring. It's a problem within our industry that we like hire our friends based on friend reputation and not necessarily on That's a thing. I would like to hear. I mean, I'm sure other people have feelings about this. So
yeah, I have very, very strong feelings about that. But Safia, I think she called on you first.
Good. Erick, you can go first if you want to.
Basically, I feel like what ends up happening oftentimes in our industry is so often you'll go into you'll be in New Orleans, a city with a very, very high population of African Americans, or Los Angeles, a place that's like almost 50% Hispanic, and you'll go into a bar and it's all white people behind the bar, and you wonder, like, that just can't be a coincidence. That looks really weird. And you kind of look into it, and then if you do see a Hispanic or they tend to be the bar back or somebody doing prep or something, and you think to yourself, well, I know this person who runs this bar, and they don't seem overtly racist or anything to me. They seem like a pretty deeply decent person for the most part. But what I think what happens is the way that these problems become systemically racist is that they don't throw a wide enough net out to the community to see who in the community wants a job. What they end up doing is they end up reaching within their social networks, and they reach in within their friends. So what ends up happening is they end up, the role was filled by one of their friends before anybody even in the community even knew they were hiring. So if you were to ask this person about, hey, you know, your entire staff is white, that seems kind of odd. That seems weird because the community doesn't look that way. They would be like, oh no, it's just a friend of a friend. It was nothing was deliberate. So what I think is that people they're operating within I'm trying not to use the R word, you know, within a racist system, and they're not seeing that their biases are actually working ahead, are 2 steps ahead of them, so that they actually can't outrun them. So what I recommend doing instead is, instead of working within your network and hiring friends of friends, which I actually don't like doing anyway, because I'm not necessarily I don't like everything being incestuous where it's all the same people who worked everywhere. I like people to be integrated in our system, and sometimes I find it's easier to train people if they're people who came up from within your system. So a lot of times what I'll do is I just, when I get resumes, or when I throw a big wide net out there and try to get as many people in for interviews, I hire, and I urge my managers to hire based off of personality and personality traits rather than who they know or what they look like. And I know that it's not as easy to do that as we say, because it's important for people to get past their biases, especially even just like, there's studies, mountains of studies out there that show that a lot of us discriminate based on names on a resume. You know, is Carlos or Mohammed just as likely to get an interview as Brad? You know, so you need to go into it. We need to better understand our biases so that we can work past them, so that we can have a more dynamic staff that reflects our neighborhood and reflects our clientele. Because otherwise, I feel like, I mean, on a super superficial level, that's super shitty to do. But on top of that, you're not properly fulfilling your role in the neighborhood and what you owe to your neighborhood and to your clientele.
You know, and to that point too, Eric, like I often think about spaces and how specifically the cocktail bar culture is very much rooted in like a white male paradigm, right? And then the people who are not white males, cisgender, you know, like they are people who are essentially sacrificing parts of their identity to adapt to that culture in order to survive in it. So then it's just this like sameness across the board. Once we start actually integrating what the communities look like, what our community, you know, is hoping to build towards properly, then, I mean, think of what hospitality turns into. It takes on a new life, and it becomes a larger, like a larger service to the culture of where we are, like the cuisine, what we're exploring, what hospitality can be. So by not challenging those biases, we're severely limiting our potential as a community, as a craft, as a cultural service, you know?
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it's sometimes, like you said, if people come in and that's all they see, they start to feel like they're not welcome. And I know I've been chatting for a bit, but I'll try to keep it brief. One thing I noticed at the last project we did when Raised by Wolves was opening, I kept getting a lot of, you know, we have a very large Mexican-American population here in San Diego. So I kept getting resumes from these, you know, I call them kids, but, you know, they're in their 20s, early 20s. You know, from a lot of these Mexican-American kids were coming in, they were applying it. And I'd look at their resume and be like, dude, you have 2 years of bartending experience, like in a nice hotel. Why are you applying as a bar back? And like, oh, hey man, you know, I just want to get my foot in the door. I know I've heard of your bars and I know you do good stuff, so I really want to work for you. And then, you know, applicant after applicant, I kept getting a lot of these Mexican Americans, and they kept asking to bar back. And some of them had 3-4 years bartending experience in nice places. And I think that they get trapped in the mentality of this is the only position that I'll be welcome as. So, you know, out of those that I'll apply, 3 of mine ended up hiring as bartenders. I'm like, hey, you applied as a bar back, you are going to bartend here. You know, I've seen where you've worked, and I recognize some of these places you have what it takes to bartend. And then vice versa, you will also see other applicants coming in who you know, who are not Mexican American, and they're the exact opposite, where all they have is bar backing experience, and they'll come in, hey, I want to bartend. Like, you have no bartending experience. Like, oh, but I think I have what it takes, blah, blah, blah. Because I feel like people see, they know what the stereotypical mixologist looks like, and if they fit that stereotype, that they can slide in just simply off of that. And I think that's extremely unfair, and I think it's all of our jobs in the community to help dismantle that.
Yo, and in the spirit of modeling accountability, I caught myself when I was hiring for bars, not internally promoting, you know, a bar back,
yes,
Mexican, and instead of hiring someone in. And he, I'm so glad he confronted me about it, but I was like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
I totally did that, you know, and I'm sure we're all, you know, guilty of it, but it's important to, I mean, it's easy to get defensive in those situations, but also like owning like, oh, wow, that did dictate my decision-making processes that affected someone's life.
Yeah, their livelihood. And the thing is, we've all done it in the past. None of us are innocent of it. We've all, you know, made misjudgments about people, I'm sure, in the past, and that's how we learn. But the important thing is that you can learn and move past it.
Definitely. So Safia, tell us a little bit about how you hire and how you build group cohesion within your bar.
At the risk of steering in an interestingly different direction, I have a whole nother panel's worth that's just me and you to talk about racism and bias in our industry. Obviously, but to answer, I feel like what your initial question, which I don't think necessarily has to go down that road, is that we at our bar, the only two things I really give a shit about in terms of hiring are whether or not a person is kind and whether or not they have an ego. If they're ego forward, they'll never work in a place that I run because I don't give a shit about your feelings. Real talk. I really give a shit about people and who they are, and if they come out better or worse after having been in my presence or under my employ or in my house, as it were. But when it comes to any kind of like comparative or individualization of a person beyond that which is appropriate for the care of them, I'm not interested. And that's really, really hard to do in this industry because it's a really, really ego-driven industry, as we all know. And it's an industry where personal accolades and or triumphs get put way before the triumphs and accolades of the team. Our bar only has 6 front of house employees, myself being one of them. And I unintentionally, or maybe completely intentionally, I don't understand what the intention of hiring diversely is, because if you just hire people who are good at their job, it turns out they're not the same color, usually. So, or the same gender, or the same set of genders or colors or whatever. So, you know, our bar is unique in that I think in town, there's probably nowhere else where we're majority minority. There's only, well now, actually, there's only one white man that works at my bar, and the chef and owner are white men. But beyond that, every single other hourly or salaried employee is a person of color or a woman or both. I think we're probably the only bar in Chicago that's run by 2 women of color currently, or one, frankly. I think maybe there was one more before the nightmare happened, but not now. But all of that, to me, is secondary to the fact that in addition to all of those things, I don't like to tout that stuff because that's just how things should be. That's the right way to be in the world. We don't go around advertising. We're really, really big on just being the people that we are and being the organization that we are and the team that we are and letting people find out about it, rather than going around patting ourselves on the back because we live life like human beings ought to and treat each other like human beings ought to. Because my mother always says you don't get a prize for getting straight A's because you're supposed to get straight A's. And so all I'm concerned about in the world, all my bosses are concerned about, all that we do is try to hire and continually reinforce the idea that nothing matters if kindness isn't the first thing, that isn't what you lead with. And then if you don't end it that way, then nothing that happens in the middle matters. That goes to hiring, that goes to obviously customer service, it goes to how we treat each other, it goes to how our bosses treat us. And I think that our business is founded on the idea that if you lead with kindness and focus on community, everything else falls into place. So yeah, it's just all kindness, no ego for us in terms of hiring practices. And it turns out like when you do that, you get, like 7-foot tall transgender people who are Filipino activists, and also like me, and also other, like everything in between. So just lead with kindness and kind people follow you.
What that also does is creates opportunities for learning and growth, like with the combination of eliminating the ego piece. Like I've had bartenders work for me that are 3 months in, and one of them was like, do you think I'm ready for a beverage director role? And I was like, bro, I'm not ready to be the manager. I'm a manager, like kind of by default, So, creating an environment where people are hired not because of their friends of friends, or I'm just going to say, so you went to camp with them, but because, sorry.
I didn't go to camp. I have the luxury. Oh, that's another thing. That's a really important thing that I wanted to highlight when you asked me that question. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It
reminded me. A distinct advantage I have is that I've been doing this job for a really long time, but I'm not a cliquey. I was just talking about this last night. I haven't done any of the cool kid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts me in a really, really interesting advantage these days. Not that I salt anybody who has done the cool kid stuff. I'm really kind of jealous. I wish that I had gone to a camp when I was like young enough and still drank or whatever. But like, because it seems fun, but I'm at a distinct advantage because though I've been in this industry for a really long time, I live on the periphery. I was a dive bar bartender for the first 15 of the 23 years that I talked about. Like that's where I come from, right? So I have the advantage of having the people who are my friends of friends being like the salt of the earth, real, kind people who come from a place of who never mattered to us in 1997. Besides, and bartending was not like a cachet job. It was the most common question I've ever heard in my life is, what do you do besides this? It's not a job that that has any kind of like, or has traditionally in the past had any kind of like mystique or cachet to it. So I never approached anything that way, and it never interested me to be a part of like whatever the imaginary elite that happened recently-ish in our industry happened. It seemed counterintuitive to me to what we do. And I think that the sort of lean to elitism and like kind of ranking each other and contest after contest after contest and exclusivity has really weirdly lent itself to exclusivity. So I like the fact that I live on the periphery. I mean, everybody is my friend, and I kick it with all the people, but I definitely like never went to camp and like wear that as a badge of pride, especially when it comes to things like who is in my little family and my little community. It's kids who never got to go to camp, metaphorically. And that's important to me.
And I'll say as much as we like, I think all of us can say that we love this community and we love the people in it. This is still a job, and it's people's employment, and it's their livelihood. And I support, folks doing whatever networking situation, whatever certification, as long as it's safe and responsible, then like do what you need to do, but it can't be the end all be all, especially when we're dealing with people's income, right? I do want to talk about wage disparity in the restaurant industry, but I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for that. So because I'm going to get real red, but let's talk a little bit about once people are hired and they're in the workspace, right? So I want to hear what Patrick about what you're doing. And Dick, I want you to chime in, in terms of thinking about training and leadership and systems around that. And then also Alex, Mony, Lauren, I'd like to hear from you all about what you're doing with your organizations and in your workspaces to support those systems and to help management and ownership and all that.
Okay, I think I'll take a stab at it here. So again, thanks. It's great to be here, you guys. So we've I'm kind of looking at and I echo what you guys just said. We don't look for someone that has 5 years experience at Applebee's that wants to step up their game downtown or something. But we're just looking, especially being in a college town. There's kind of two sections of Madison. There's one like the college area, and then there's like the young techie young adult part on the other side of the Capitol Square. So what we're looking for ultimately, and even in these hiring shortages, we really haven't made like many sacrifices to divvy away from what we're looking for. But we're looking for interesting people, diverse group of people that have a diverse group of interests, that we'll train anybody. And we worked with guys like you guys know, like Erick down in Chicago, but he's worked kind of hand in hand with us since we opened Merchant 10 years ago to help us even identify how do you pick those people out of the crowd, and what conversations do you have, or what are job interviews like? Well, they're not what you think they are. I remember one time way back when I had an interview as a young bartender, and the woman asked me what was in my 3-disc changer, and she said, depending upon what's in your 3-disc changer, it will depend on whether you have a job or not. So I guess she liked my taste in music. I think it was like well, what was it? It was like Tribe, Pantera, and like who else was it? It was Frank Zappa. So she liked Frank Zappa, so I got the job. Anyway, but so we ask a lot more questions like that. I mean, we've really turned, like, up in Madison, as you know, it's a pretty politically polarizing town. It's also very it's not as diverse as we want it to be up here. But we're trying to be inclusionary. Not just that, but we've really shifted our focus since COVID hit from a lot of things you guys just mentioned to more of a much more community-based approach. So anyone that's in our organization is definitely, there's an ethos of just community-based service and service to others and service to each other, and mental health. I think it was Ryan that said earlier that we also have a unlimited paid time off policy, which a few people have taken advantage of, and that didn't work out for them. But in general, it's been really nice. So we preach work-life balance. We preach getting away from it. Mental health, above all, is more important now than ever. I mean, to be honest with you, there's a number of bartenders and industry people in general up here that have really not taken this thing well. They're not well. They weren't well before, and now they're even worse. And the state of the bartending industry here, while there's a ton of people that have been well trained and well traveled and have gone to the camps and have gone to tails and whatnot, it's just kind of a sad state of affairs up here. And you know what? Like, I was one of those people. And so we have an open door policy when it comes to mental health. There's been several times in the last 6 months that people have taken substantial time off for mental health, month, 2 months. And that's something that we really focused in on. But back to the community aspect of it, we've actually started, when this hit, we changed our entire model from kind of being in it for the tip money and working a double Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and high money shifts. But guess what? Like, by the end of Saturday night, Sunday morning, those people were such a pile of shit that, like, they had to, like, lay in bed for the next 3 days. Yeah, they made a bunch of money over the weekend, but that money they made was built on the backs of the cooks, built on the backs of the bar backs, built on the backs of the dough prep people. So we just came to a conclusion when COVID hit. It was a really nice opportunity for us to just reorganize our priorities and to take care of one another, because we went to straight up tip sharing, which is like we've been trying to do for years, but it just always was being knocked down by your top earners because it's just not fair that this guy or this girl should make as much as this guy or that girl. But honestly, we're all making the money together. So there was like a new tip policy that we immediately instituted that had different points for different services. So if someone on a Friday night is making 150 drinks in 2 hours, their point system is a little bit more than someone on Tuesday night that might have made 40 drinks in 2 hours. So it's been great. We started a new organization called Cook It Forward, which is a community-based organization where my partner Josh and I started along with Francesca Hong, who's a restaurateur and bar owner up here at a place called Morris Ramen. And she was just elected to the Wisconsin State Assembly, which is really cool because now we've got like boots on the ground, right? And she's not putting up with any more bullshit, no favors, no anything. And she's tough as nails, and we're lucky to have her representing us. But the three of us started a thing called Cook It Forward, where we are raising money through private donorship and also corporate donorship to prepare meals for people, for food insecure families around Dane County, which is like the greater Madison area. So we're on our way to our first 50,000 meals. So what we're doing is restaurants are cooking meals for food insecure areas, and we've created a delivery service. And through these donations, we pay the restaurant for each meal that they produce $10. So that allows them to keep their people on board. It allows them to a lot of us are open, and we don't even feel good about it. It's like, yeah, we kind of have to be, but do we want to be? Not really, so we're stuck with this moral dilemma of like, how can we help and have a greater impact other than just trying to pay our stupid rent? Because we don't care. I mean, half the people up here aren't even paying rent. But so we started Cook It Forward, and I think we're producing about 1,000 meals a week throughout Dane County, and so that money goes directly to restaurants, keeps their workers employed. It goes directly to the farming networks we work with. There's a whole network of nonprofit things that we're working on. So I think I'm getting thirsty here, so I'm gonna take a sip of my Clairvoyant. But yeah, we're just very focused on what we can do to help and how to help each other. It's come to a breaking point. I think as bad as this has been, like, from my perspective, history has a way of implementing these awful corrections at times that sometimes maybe they're needed, maybe they're not. There's a lot of people struggling, but I feel like when we get too far out of bounds with egos, with self-promotion, with you, I mean, you name it, with entitlement. Entitlement was a huge issue in our industry until COVID hit. And it kind of brings us all back to, or hopefully brings us back to a place where like we can reimagine, like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the point of this? So we feel like really good about the opportunities that we've been presented through like this really difficult time. And as like their leader or one of their leaders, it's important for us to not just, have good lip service and say everything's gonna be fine. It's not gonna be fine. It's not okay. Like we're struggling. We don't know what's gonna happen this winter. We're fighting city ordinances that used to apply in 1985 when there wasn't a pandemic. It's like every day is a battle, but it almost feels better to fight for something than just to sit by and like, yeah, everything's great when it's just not. And that, a year ago today, everything was not great. All these issues still existed and there was no transparency. And if it takes something like this to like bring this stuff to the surface, then well, bring it on. Let's start dealing with some real problems here and real solutions. So.
Totally. And let's talk a little bit about the community aspect of bars and restaurants. And and Ricky, I especially want to hear about sort of what went down in Milwaukee, and your objections to some of the practices that were happening. And Sean, also the protections that you put in place for your employees and your opening structure of how you reopened and stuff. So, but also everybody, please just chime in. I don't want to micromanage this.
Milwaukee, obviously, we're known for being a hyper-segregated city. Hyper-segregated, which they had to come up with the term for the level of severity of our segregation here. So what we did when we closed was I started seeing people in the industry that have been doing this for a long time, who are parents, like landscaping and doing stuff like that. So I just couldn't see that happening, like single parents in the industry. So we started a food pantry in the bar for people in the service industry, started gathering cash, clothes, just whatever people needed. And then we'd always been working with this homeless women's shelter. And we just kind of amped up the amount of stuff we were doing pretty much until the George Floyd event happened, which we're in like the cool kid neighborhood in Milwaukee. And I happen to be like the only minority that owns like a cocktail place out here. And so a lot of people, we got like all these reviews and stuff when we opened up, and I just kind of shifted from like, you know, hey, this is this mushroom tea cocktail that we make, into yo, what the fuck is going on in this stupid world, and what the fuck is up with our governor, and what is up with, like, you know, just the people who have 1,200 constituents, but they are halting progress in the state because of their views and whatnot. So we changed the platform of what we were doing in order to make ourselves feel better, make the staff feel better about what's going on in the world, and really just trying to get other people in this city, in this hyper segregated city, to step out of their shells of like trying to go out and be James Beard nominated and like not saying Black Lives Matter because they're afraid of like the people from like 5 blocks away who are secretly racist giving them $40 every month, like for a fucking ravioli dish or some shit. But you know, it's just one of those things to me where it helped me with my mental health. It helped my staff know that no matter what happens, like, we did our best for parents in the service industry, which, by the way, it wasn't just like cocktail servers and, you know, all these people that worked at these nice restaurants in Milwaukee. It was like the mom in northwestern Milwaukee who works as a cashier at Arby's, who we were helping out. And it really just like refocused what we were doing, and really just like made me remember how I started in the industry and how I've worked every single position. And at 34, like, I own this cool bar, and I can tag the Speaker of the House and say, fuck you, because what you're doing is keeping segregation alive in Milwaukee. And I don't want to make a fucking cocktail right now. Like, I want to tell you you're an asshole. My bartender wants to tell you you're an asshole. And that just is what we should be doing, because there's no community without us, like, using our voice of like getting views for our ice cold martini that we made. Like, if we can't say fuck you to these people who aren't gonna, you know, trickle down and make our communities better. So I'm sorry, I knew I was gonna like blow up because Milwaukee was a hot mess, and then we just had Kenosha happen out here, and it's hard being a person of color in the industry, but I'm really glad that I get to actually tell people from San Francisco and Denver and Kansas City that, you know, it's some real life shit, and we can like actually say like fuck you to whoever we want, and it'll make you feel better. Someone else talk.
Well, and so I'll kind of, I feel you, and I'll rein it in by saying though that, like, in terms of when it comes, like, workers' rights issues are human rights issues, right? And there is an element of violence that comes with when people who are, again, in charge of your well-being in the workplace are taking measures that feel violent or feel silencing or feel oppressive, you know, and, you know, yeah, that's what I'll say about that. I think it is important to have those conversations, especially in an industry that's so like emotionally driven, you know, there's a lot of emotional labor that goes into this work.
I know you said that you weren't ready to talk about the disparity of pay yet, but talking about the like the violence that comes with, you know, this industry, like that really struck a chord with me when you and I spoke about that a few weeks ago. And I think more than ever that like the spotlight on that violence when we're working for less than living wage, expecting guests to pay the gap for front of house, and then back of house is like a whole separate like gigantic issue. Like what you just said about that, you know, that violence when it comes on the guest side as far as pay is concerned has been something on my mind a lot lately.
Yeah, it's something we did when we, you know, when we first opened, we decided to reopen more as a collective, you know, I mean, as of taking all of our staff, brought back the ones that felt comfortable coming back when it was time. And we didn't open until they were ready, right? Until we were all ready. It was never a point where I said, this is when we're going, you know, but what I found, and I feel like we've treated our people with compassion and kindness, and we know them pretty well. We have a small staff, you know, and we've always taken interest in them all the way around, not just their job performance, but how they're, you know, we check in with them constantly about how they're doing, how their mental health is, how their physical health is. If we see people going down the road of, you know, like a lot in this industry where, you know, the over drinking, the abuse, the working too many hours or thinking that they're Superman, we always kind of check in. So when we brought everybody back, we found that people wanted to fight with us to stay open. You know, they want to stand next to us and have this opening be a success. What we didn't want to do when we reopened was have these tiers of tipping anymore, right? I mean, it still exists in our industry. It allows us to stay open, especially when, you know, our revenue is about 40% of where we're at. But the tips are now evenly distributed across the board with everyone. Everybody makes the same wage because they're all taking the same risk right now, you know? So why would I pay somebody half or 3/4 or 1/4 of what everybody else is making when they're taking the exact same risk and probably working twice as hard? So
we did the same,
you know,
yeah.
And when we checked in with everybody, and every single person, you know, from the people who used to get the highest tips to the middle, they all agreed. Not even anybody, you know. And I asked them outright, like, would you have agreed to this pre-COVID times? And everyone, you know, I mean, with the ability of hindsight, said yes. But I mean, it's something that we're changing forever now. Like everybody up front will make the same amount of money, and it's really important to us. Your question earlier about like extra protections, like what we did to make sure that everybody was okay. Like I said, we checked in before we opened. Everybody was guaranteed to work again when we could bring them back. But we only brought back the people that were comfortable being there, and we paid the people who weren't. I mean, you know, that was important for us, and you know, the PPP money helped out a little bit for us there. But you know, I went from bartender to doorman. You know, I wanted to control the door. I wanted to control the flow of people in there. And we had a neighborhood bar, Occidental, and we opened Williams & Graham a few months later because there was enough space in there for everybody to be safe. But now our neighborhood bar runs more like our cocktail bar did. You get greeted at the door, you get walked to a table, you get told exactly how everything's going to be, and what the parameters are for them to be in your place. You know, they have to have masks on when they're not eating or drinking. When the server approaches the table, we put barriers up wherever we could. We always keep our front windows open. We change our ACs out to HEPA filters and try to do everything we possibly could. We know nothing is going to be 100% safe, but you know, we're keeping our temperature logs. We check everybody's temperature before they walk in. Yes, I know, and people argue that they're going to be asymptomatic and people can walk in, but why, you know, what's the harm of getting a temperature taken before you? There's no harm in it. Yeah, an asymptomatic person might get in, but somebody with a fever definitely won't get in, you know? And it's been really difficult for us knowing that, you know, our mission has always been to create a community within our bar that leaves a positive impression on the lives that come through our bar, right? And if they weren't ready, we were never going to reopen. You know, they fought to come back and be open, and you know, and it's something, you know, some of you guys can weigh in on, but a 4-day week or a 5-day week in pre-COVID times was 100 times easier than like a 3 or 4 day week in COVID. The stress is that much higher, and we need to check in even more with the members of our staff and make sure that they're doing okay. And you can tell we've had a couple of people that just haven't been able to handle it, and you know, mental health days or time off is there's no question for us. We always say if you're not in a good place, you know, take that day just like you would a sick day, and you'll get paid and you'll be in the cut and everybody's fine with it. I mean, we're now back as a community, and it will be the way we always operate. So there is a positive spin coming back out of this. I also want to mention, going back to something that was talked about before, real quick before I stop, but you know, COVID did one thing, and I felt like our community as a whole, bartending community, with the entitlement and the ranking and the traveling rock star bartenders and all that kind of stuff, that wasn't the bartending I did in my first 20 years. You know, back to what Safia was saying, like nobody paid me to walk across the street in 1994. My dad says that all the time. He's like, nobody pays me to walk across the street. People are paying you to, you know, to fly to Russia. Like, it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to him, and I get that. But what this has done now is people who just got into the bartending industry are now seeing what daily life in a bar is like. You know, you don't just run 2 bar shifts, then run off to tails and run off to this competition and do that. Now the focus on the foundation of what we do, the hospitality, the taking care of people first, that is super key to what we're doing now, because not only are we taking care of them, making sure they leave in a better place, but we have the responsibility of keeping them safe while we're doing it. So it's a greater weight of responsibility.
Yo, for real. And I want to make sure that we do, you know, that sort of foundational thing is absolutely right. And I want to hear from Dick, kind of about, Dick, what your thoughts are around, like, you know, like organizational spaces and management. And I want to hear from LP and Mony in that realm too, because I know y'all got thoughts.
Yeah, and I want to speak to Safia was talking about earlier with ego, because I was just raised to, like, don't check your ego at the door, leave it at home. And that's a great hiring practice. And hearing everyone's always asking me, it's like, okay, we understand the what, we're starting to figure out the why. And they're like, what do we need to do to make real change in the culture within, you know, hospitality, the bar, restaurant? And you guys have hit a nail on the head, talking about being transparent, talking about being vulnerable, being honest. We talked about it earlier, is that we practice, like, behavior is what you practice. And I think you guys are starting to put in things to practice different behavior that's better. And you guys are mastering that. Like we talked about it earlier in the talk about how many times do we practice all the time what service looks like, what it needs to be, you know, what this drink needs to be, you know, we're testing and tasting all of that. But do we put that same kind of effort when it comes to communication, when it comes to behavior, when it comes to team development? And I think teams is where it's headed. Unfortunately, like, you know, hospitality, restaurant, bar industry sort of co-opted that hierarchical structure, and it comes with consequences. But I feel like you guys are slamming it. You're killing the silos, and you're starting to really develop these systems, because people are like, where's the next thing? And systems equals change, whether it's a policy, whether it's you guys are doing it. And really, it makes me happy because you guys are really creating like a dual bottom line. Like, yes, you guys need to make money, but you're putting up like, hey, we judge success by making money, but also by like fully releasing, you know, our employees' possibilities, or mental health, or communication, where you're like, hey, that's cool, we had a great year, but did we treat our people right? Like, did we worry about them? Like, did we help them grow? And it's in everyone's described, you know, understanding, removing that ego, because that'll help you learn, understand those bias, hire the people that are the best people, and not having like this constricted flow into your business or organizations. You guys are unconstricting that, and you guys are removing the obstacles and promoting engagement. I think the next thing is about getting that leadership development, understanding how teams work, and really just being honest and being able to have this dialogue and this conversation. It's come a long way, but it needs to come a lot further. So from like a big picture, if people are like, hey, you guys gave specific examples, specific policies, and you guys are putting it into practice and now you're mastering it in your bars and your restaurants. And that's how you, at the end of the day, change culture or create a new one. So from that standpoint, like, I appreciate, like, these conversations are great, and it just, the stories are powerful. So thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about, how Alex and I started to focus on health, and then, COVID happened, and then Black Lives Matter movement happened, and then I don't want to use the word force because, I feel like force it has this negative connotation with it, but we did have to change the trajectory of like where we wanted to go. We had an idea of what we wanted to offer the community programming wise and resource wise. And then we were like, well, there's a huge need. And, we've focused on this idea of providing a platform for people to have conversations and dialogue. When Juneteenth occurred, we did something called Celebrating Blackness, where we invited a various group of Black individuals in the hospitality industry to talk about their experiences and why they're proud of being Black. And that was just, that in and of itself was amazing and very powerful. And, we saw that there was just really an opportunity to, as bartenders, because that's what we are, talk about our experiences and what it is we're all going through and how we're all feeling, and provide tools so that we can empower the community. We can provide them with education and knowledge so that when they are going back to their bars and COVID is still existing, they know what questions to ask their employers, so that when they're being hired by major companies and they're signing a contract, they watch that seminar I taught about language and reasoning, and they have a better understanding of, how words are used as a weapon.
It was so good. It was so good. So helpful. If you're watching this right now, go back and watch, what was it called? Tipping for Equity?
Tipping for Equity, yeah.
Oh, it's so killer, so good.
Thanks. But it's, and then really looking at these words like diversity, inclusion, and equity. And it's like, now everyone has a D&I plan, and that's great. But like, let's really explore these words, what they mean, and understand that that does not look the same in every place. That's completely different depending on where you put it, and having these difficult conversations in a space like this, where we may not all think the same way, but we can respect everyone's opinion and everyone's thoughts and still move forward, united together. And I just think that's really important, especially now with everything occurring and happening. So I'm really proud of what we're doing. And, for all those young bartenders out there who are, just starting out, or even people who want to start a business, I think there's something that's so amazing about doing what you love, what drives you, and being surrounded by people who have that same fire and passion. Because at the end of the day, the amount of followers you have doesn't mean jack squat. It doesn't matter. It's the content you're putting out. If it's meaningful and if it's helpful, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, similar to what we're doing with support staff, of trying to put in systems, to help support the workers, but also like we're kind of structuring it in a different levels of responsibility way. So like there's programming for ownership, there's programming for management, there's programming for hourly employees, and with hourly employees, it's a lot of it is like, the stigma surrounding mental health, but also human resources. So a lot of people get taken advantage of because they don't know their rights. And the same thing goes for managers. I feel like so many of us were bartenders. Like I was a bartender and then I became a bar manager, and I had no idea about like labor laws or like any of these things. And so a lot of times management, they will unintentionally take advantage of someone because they don't know a lot of these labor laws. And then with ownership, manager is weird because it's kind of like the shit end of the stick. You're between ownership, so the decisions that you can make are very limited, but then you also are caring for the hourly employees, so you're kind of getting it from both sides. And like with ownership, it's really their job to set the space, to set the tone, and to support employees. So like to go back to something that was talked about earlier of, you know, reopening during COVID, and definitely like supporting everyone to try and keep them physically safe so that way they don't get this illness, and, you know, the wage disparities between that and kind of evening that out right now. And my perspective is a little weird because I'm not currently bartending. I do work for a distributor, but what I am seeing in Chicago a lot is that a lot of restaurant groups or owners have opened their spaces and they are not supporting their employees as far as how the guests are allowed to treat them. So, you know, something that we've always got was, or, you know, always heard was the guest is always right no matter what. And personally, I think that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, I love hospitality, but also like, I feel like we've gotten into this point where we've convoluted hospitality to mean that like someone can treat you however the hell they want and nothing will happen to them. And you will always have to be polite and keep the smile on your face and do all this stuff while someone's treating you like trash. And I don't personally agree with that idea of hospitality. And I wish there were more more owners out there. And that's part of what our programming will touch on. You know, LP, as long, you know, you've had to focus on health. It works. Same thing with us, with support staff. But yeah, it's almost like kind of training our guests to treat us correctly.
I just, to your point, Mony, I think that, and sort of like about what I was saying is that when you come from a place of kindness, by the way, kindness and niceness are two entirely different things.
Totally different.
Let me be very clear, because I just realized that we 12 are not the only people who are going to watch this. Kindness and niceness are entirely different. Niceness is performative. Kindness is who you are. Kindness is intrinsic quality of humanity that we all would like to express and lean into. And unfortunately, to Mony's point, sometimes we make it difficult for each other to be kind to each other. The idea, this is a real concern of mine, and this is why I chimed in, I'm sorry. The concern of mine is that there are very few privately owned restaurants that are going to survive this situation, especially in this town, right? Because we're such a huge bar and restaurant community, and there's 26,000 or something restaurants in Cook County, right? Something like that. Those of us who are owned by single ownership or small partnerships, who are not parts of big restaurant groups or conglomerates, are falling off pretty rapidly these days. My bar is not going to do that, by the way. They'll have to come from our cold, dead hands. But within the confines of that truth, I am very nervous, and I would like for whoever's watching this to join, I guess, Mony and FOH to really hold hands in the idea of like not allowing the mentality that is permitted abuse of staff to continue, because the only places where anybody can work are places that are owned by large groups of people who don't give a shit about their staff. It's a real worry of mine. I can take care of my 6 kids and probably, 20 or 30 or 40 more going forward, but that's it, because we're this big, right? And we will propagate a culture, and I train all of the people who work for us that this is the standard of how they should expect, their expectations should be at this level, not at whatever bullshit they were experiencing before. And which creates a new expectation for them, for me too. If I'm up here, you got to come up here with me, kind of a thing. But I'm very, very nervous that because I don't need to name any of them, but because blah, 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 blah use group is going to be one of the few restaurant groups that are open or places that can employ people who do what we do, that the negative practices will continue and even be exacerbated by the fact that, like, you know, if there's 26,000 restaurants, each of them has 10 people, that's 260,000 people who don't have a job, who are looking for work and will go anywhere and accept any kind of treatment so they can put food on their table. It really makes me nervous.
Yeah, and
I'm
like,
really,
actually, sorry.
no, go ahead, Mony.
Like especially outside of cities, like in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like outside of cities, most of the places where people are employed by restaurants are owned by bigger groups. And, you know, when we started the Comp Tab Relief Fund, like a lot of the people that were applying to it were working outside of the city, in the suburbs, and these places. And Safia, like you said, it worries me as to how they are going to continue being treated because they're not owned by an independent owner that cares about their employees.
I'm really glad that y'all brought that up, and I feel like probably everybody has, like, you know, very emotional feelings about this subject. And I know that Safia, you said you're nervous, but I like to feel like I can be hopeful because, you know, I think a lot of us probably came up working for people who allowed our guests to treat us really poorly. And that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are now. You know, like, for instance, like just a couple of nights ago, we had our first guest at the bar who, you know, wouldn't wear a face mask and said that they had a health condition. And, you know, instantly in my head, I was like, well, we have to serve them. You know, we always have to serve people. We have to serve people all the time. We have to take care of them. It's our job. And I was like genuinely shocked when our general manager was like, no, it's our policy. They have to wear a face mask. And that it's like, I'm still retraining myself that, like, I don't work for shitty people anymore. Like, I work for people who care about me first. And then we make money after that and we serve guests. And so, like, there's hope for me that there are all of us that are sitting in this room. There are people that are going to watch this that will not tolerate that any longer. And it's time to let that change happen. Ryan, I feel like you had some stuff you wanted to add to this. I saw you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I really love that Mony pointed out the myth of the customer is always right, or the guest is always right. I mean, I've been saying for years that's just not the case. And I think that, you know, part of that whole belief system and that mythology built around that is also kind of prefaced by tipping culture. It's prefaced by the fact that people are not compensated with a living wage, and that they feel like the only way they can earn enough money to get by in a position like that is to allow situations like that to, you know, take advantage of them. And I think so it's kind of it's a two-pronged approach, I think, and we're doing the right things. That's why I'm actually hopeful as well that we're gonna solve that problem, in that we're talking about pay and trying to even the playing field there. We're trying to get, you know, to a point where we don't feel like we have to allow that kind of behavior in order to make more money, right? And then second, understanding that it's just simply wrong. You know, if you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you're a customer or a guest. There's a line. And when it comes to hospitality, me personally, I a long time ago, when I started to like really shift away from being a full-time bartender and a full-time, you know, bar manager and providing hospitality on a regular basis to shifting more into the ownership leadership role, I struggled a little bit because it was hard to I didn't get to provide that hospitality as much. And what I learned, what helped me through that, was to focus my need to provide hospitality on my employees first and foremost. Show hospitality to my employees, and then in turn they would turn around and show that hospitality to guests, right? But it's with everyone. It's not just your employees. I think they're the most important ones as a business owner to show hospitality to, but also anyone you come in contact with, whether it's the bank or insurance agents or, you know, distributors, delivery drivers, it doesn't really matter. But it's all about, I love the analogy also of kindness and niceness not being the same thing. It kind of reminds me of the difference between service and hospitality. Sure. It's similar to that.
Yeah, and I think another great, like, hopeful story is recently we were in a bar in Chicago and somebody tried to come in and had this issue wearing a mask. Before management and employees could say something, guests revolted against them. Because to Safia's point, like, people are really realizing like these mom and pop, like these culture staples, they're not going to make it through this. And I see a lot of people and myself, like, I'm not going to these big places, not that I went to before. Like, I need to go to my community spots. Like, they're getting all the money I got right now. So it was kind of encouraging, and people are like, this really made them realize, like, man, these restaurants and bars are going through it. And it kind of closed that empathetic gap between customers and people that are running the bars. And it's just like, we just all applauded, like, you know, and they kind of looked at the management employees like, you know, we got you. So it's definitely trying to stay hopeful and stay positive and trying to support each other.
So I'm so sad to share that we have to wrap this up.
I know, right?
I know. But
I was trying to squeak it out.
Could have been another couple hours.
Like
part two. We need an encore.
A part two, like maybe in like a week or so after we've all digested our thoughts. But I just want to add one more thing about hospitality and boundaries. Something that I try to teach and I was able to start implementing towards the end of my tenure as a manager was I asked people, and this was born out of, you know, a dude at bar one touched one of our servers, and she came around to the service well and she said to me, she's like, can I say something? What do I do? And I was like, oh no, thank you for telling me. We're gonna have him removed. And she's like, no, I feel bad. And I'm like, no, he needs to go, period. And it got me thinking about hospitality and also about burnout. And I started to think about my bar space as my home, right? So I would approach it as like, okay, I have people coming over. Some people I might know. They're also maybe friends of friends. So what am I going to do? I'm going to clean. I'm going to make sure that I am putting my best foot forward and that my home looks nice. And then when they get there, I'm going to ask questions like, are you thirsty? Do you want a glass of wine? Or do you want water? Are you hungry? Like, these are basic things we do when we like welcome people into our home, right? We're not, but it's still our home. Like, it's our space and we have ownership of that space. And the same then happens if someone comes into my home and offends me or offends a guest or a friend of mine or a family member. I'm going to be like, yo, not here. And if it keeps happening, leave my house. Period. And I like teaching that because it grants, Ryan, to your point, it grants autonomy to people. It also reminds them that they are their own person, and it checks us in with hospitality. So it also like swims against that dehumanization that happens within our industry with individuals. You know, always reminding ourselves, like, I'm a human being. I have rights. I have autonomy. I don't need to be treated like this. So I just wanted to share that, but we got to wrap this up. I'm so bummed, but this was so great, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Huge thank you. Yeah.
Rock stars.
I learned a lot.
This was awesome.
And anybody in Chicago starting to move tomorrow, I'm going to try to come find y'all awesome humans. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Laura, I just have one more story to tell. It should only be like 10 minutes.
Does it involve the bar 5-day and a spit cup?
Anyway, let me start at the very beginning.
All right, y'all.
You guys.
You guys are the best. Thank you very much.
Hanging out with all you.
Cool.
Appreciate
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Really nice. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.